Snapchat's new AI gets 1 star in a "who would have seen that coming" backlash. Microsoft says, wait for this, we should buy fewer PCs. And where do AI companies get the data to train their new large language models? These stories and more on #Trending for Tuesday, April 25th. I'm your host, Jim Love, CIO of IT World Canada and TechNewsDay in the US. In a world gone crazy with AI, with every company scrambling to put some AI component to its services, Snapchat's new My AI feature is a warning that just because it's got AI, it might not be a raging success. Snapchat debuted its My AI feature using OpenAI's GPT technology and got a lot of positive press and attention. ChatGPT is the fastest growing application in history, reaching 100 million monthly active users in only 2 months. To put it in perspective, TikTok took 9 months to hit that mark, even as a viral sensation, and Instagram took 2.5 years. And the app stores and browser extension forums had downloads at such a rate that our own security podcast, Cybersecurity Today, was warning people to be careful in case, in this mad rush, they downloaded malware. With that level of popularity, how could this fail? Well, it did. Following the rollout of My AI, Snapchat's average review in the US App Store was 1.67, with 3/4 or 75% of the reviews being 1 star. That's according to Sensor Tower that tracks these ratings. In Q1 of 2023, the Snapchat average review was 3.05, with only 35% being 1 star. Now that's a first warning. This is a critical audience to start with, but the difference between 75% and 35% 1-star ratings, it's a chasm. Apptopia, another firm that tracks audience sentiment, said that its impact score rating dropped to -9.2, and their scale ranges from -10 to +10. They note that Snapchat received 3 times the number of 1-star ratings than usual on April 20th, the day after My AI release was announced. That's pretty much the equivalent of, you could tie a pork chop around its neck and the dog won't play with it. But even the 5-star ratings, which also had a spike, did not include favorable comments about the AI. Many called it crap or said it should be removed. So what went wrong? Well, for one thing, it was forced onto users, occupying their screen real estate without their permission. The only way to get rid of it was to pay more for a Snapchat Plus subscription. Some found the AI feature to be, as one poster stated, creepy. Some worried about their data and privacy. Others worried about their locations being tracked. And there were reports in the national press that raised some eyebrows. The Washington Post reported on the bot when it was told that the user was 13, it responded to a question about how to set the mood to have sex for the first time. How did Snapchat get it so wrong? Perhaps the key to this lies in the company's response to the criticism, as reported in TechCrunch. The company said that it's constantly iterating on Snapchat's features based on community feedback, but it didn't commit to or even suggest that it would discontinue the app, despite the massive negative feedback. In fact, Snapchat's spokesperson reportedly said, if the users didn't like the feature, they don't have to use it. And that says it all. Can modern work applications and endpoints abate end-user computing greenhouse gas emissions and drive climate action? The answer is yes, if companies take appropriate action. That includes identifying and procuring devices with a low carbon footprint, keeping devices for longer periods of time to slow demand, and using devices in the most energy-efficient manner during the use phase. And that amounts to buying fewer PCs and using the ones you have responsibly. It's a sentiment echoed by many organizations who are trying to help cope with the fact that global IT is on track to account for about 8% of energy usage by the end of this decade, and it's one of the fastest growing users of electricity. And one of the biggest factors in the carbon footprint is not energy usage, it's the manufacturing of computers and phones. Some studies have shown that up to 80% of the carbon footprint of a device is used before it's plugged in for the first time. So strategies for having fewer PCs purchased, extending the life of current devices to up to 8 years, abolishing desktop devices using BYOD, especially with laptops that use far less energy than desktops with large monitors, all of these are exactly what you'd expect to hear in a strategy. But would you expect to hear this from Microsoft? Well, you will. Or at least you will if you read the latest document called PX3, a research paper authored by Justin Sutton Parker and distributed under the Microsoft logo. The report looks at all aspects of carbon emission reduction and has a number of models that it's used to look at different policies of acquisition and usage. In some models, extending the lifespan of devices from 3 or 5 to as high as 8 years has a major impact. Even some of the power utilization strategies with smaller laptops and moving more processing into highly efficient cloud data centers has a smaller impact. But as the report points out, with over 4 billion computer users in the world, even a seemingly small amount per device would have an enormous impact. And what's in it for Microsoft? Well, if they switch users to cloud data centers and continue with their cloud licensing models, they will continue to dominate the corporate market where they are strongest. Or maybe it's just the right thing to do, avoiding what the report calls the pathway of apathy, represented by the on-premises policy where business as usual continues. Just a reminder that corporate listeners in Canada who want to find out more about how their company can reduce carbon emissions from IT can go to the Digital Governance Council and look for the Sustainability Pledge. And if there's an equivalent body in the US that listeners want to recommend, contact me and I'll put the link in the text version of this podcast. The Wall Street Journal reveals the secret list of websites that have been used to train AI like ChatGPT. Now, chatbots are not intelligent per se. They don't yet understand what they say, although having seen a raw demonstration of ChatGPT-4, we might not be able to say that in the future. But right now, those chatbots are mimicking our speech and using the results of an incredible ingestion of data. But where does it get that data? The tech companies that make these bots tend to be pretty secretive about where the data comes from. That could be because they feel it's a competitive advantage. It might also be because at one point, someone's going to ask or raise the ugly question about who really owns the data that these AI engines are trained on. But the Washington Post broke through part of this secrecy working with the Allen Institute for AI and with a web analytics company called SimilarWeb. They used Google's C4 dataset, which is a massive snapshot of the contents of 15 million websites that have been used to instruct Google and Facebook's AI models. OpenAI does not disclose what datasets it used to train its model for ChatGPT. Then they went through and rated each site based on the number of tokens that appeared from them in the dataset. Now, a token is a sequence of characters that represent a unit of meaning, the fundamental building blocks of the prediction engines of AI. The 3 biggest sites were patents.google.com, wikipedia.org at number 2, and scribd.com, a subscription-only digital library. Also high on the list, according to the Post, is b-awk.org, which is a large collection of pirated books that has been seized by the U.S. Department of Justice. Starting to realize why these companies might not want you to focus on how they've trained their AI? The Post also points to some sites that might raise some questions about what these AIs are learning. Wowhead.com, which is a World of Warcraft player forum, is one of them. And what could possibly be bad about learning from that source? There are other sources such as ColoradoVoters.info and FLVoters.com, presumably FloridaVoters.com, state voter registration databases. These are public, but given the scandals of Cambridge Analytica and the tensions in the US, voter information and how it's used is worthy of questioning. Overall, the Post reports that business and industrial sites made up the biggest category at about 16%, led by sites like Fool.com that provides investment advice. Kickstarter.com and Patreon.com, both of which fund creative projects, were also in the mix, and these start to raise issues of how much of the business or artist's information is being shared without any compensation to the owner or creator. And publishing sites, not surprisingly, form a large amount of the involuntary contributors. Half the top 10 sites were news sites ranging from the New York Times, The Guardian, Forbes, HuffPost, and The Washington Post. Our own ITWorldCanada.com has also contributed, as have other user blogs. My own all too often ignored blog, ChangeTheGame.ca, is also featured in the mix. Now this may lead to the greatest issue of all, and the elephant in the room. Who owns this training material? The Post pointed out that the copyright symbol appears more than 200 million times in this data set. Now, if you want to know if you're part of someone's training set, the Post has created an application where you can search and find out by URL what is included. There's a link to this in the text version of this podcast at itworldcanada.com. And Twitter's new verify status stumbles. The gang who can't tweet straight strikes again. As social media consultant Matt Navarra told the BBC, the decision to remove the legacy checkmarks was a big mistake, possibly Elon's biggest Twitter mistake so far. Now, Twitter, rebuffed by many celebrities and rejected by some top media, and offending other large media outlets from NPR to the CBC and others, just can't seem to get their new pay-for-verification off the ground. In addition, the BBC reported that a fake Disney account somehow got verified and was tweeting vile content before it was shut down. Few people really seem to understand what the new layers of verification are. And there are reports that Musk has, although Musk has blocked the leaders of the #BlockTheBlue campaign, that he's also given their blocked accounts verified blue badges just to tick them off. Pun intended. TechCrunch reported that multiple top accounts with more than 1 million followers got their verification marks back. However, many of them, including writer Neil Gaiman, footballer Riyad Mahrez, musician Lil Nas X, actress Janelle Parrish-Long, and British TV presenter Richard Osman, said they didn't pay for the blue badge. The Insider reported that Twitter is adding verified checkmarks to the accounts of dead celebrities, making them look like paid Twitter Blue subscribers. Kobe Bryant, Norm Macdonald, Anthony Bourdain, Chadwick Boseman, and even Michael Jackson are all on the platform as Twitter Blue. Now, Elvis's Twitter account does not have a blue check, but then, is he really dead? That's the top tech news for today. #Trending goes to air 5 days a week with the daily top tech news stories, and we have a special weekend edition where we do an in-depth interview with an expert on some tech development that's making the news. Follow us on Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Links to all the stories we've covered can be found in the text edition of this podcast at itworldcanada.com/podcasts. And we love your comments. You could find me on LinkedIn, Twitter, or Mastodon as @TheRealJimLove on our Mastodon site, technews.social. I'm still on Twitter, rarely check it, and don't have a check mark. Or if that's too much, just leave a comment under the text version at itworldcanada.com/podcasts. I'm your host, Jim Love. Have a terrific Tuesday.